It was one of those evenings when the world outside felt too loud, yet the apartment was painfully quiet. I sat on my couch scrolling aimlessly through my phone, pretending not to see the name flashing on the screen. Mom. For a moment, I froze watching it ring, the soft vibration echoing in the silence. Then I pressed decline. The call ended. Again. It wasn't that I didn't love her. Of course I did. She was my mother. But lately, every conversation had turned into a lecture about my job, my choices, my friends, my late nights. I didn't want another reminder that I wasn't living the life she had dreamed for me. I wanted space. I wanted peace. The phone buzzed again, Mom calling. I sighed and tossed it onto the coffee table. Not tonight, I muttered under my breath. I told myself I'd call her tomorrow. Tomorrow always felt like a safe place, somewhere far enough to postpone guilt. That night, I watched a movie, texted a few friends, and fell asleep with my phone on silent. The next morning, there were 3 missed calls and 1 voicemail. I didn't listen to it. I just deleted the notifications, convincing myself it wasn't important. Over the next week, things got busier. Work deadlines, social gatherings, the endless noise of city life. My mother called every 2 or 3 days, sometimes twice in the same evening. I stopped picking up completely. My best friend Lily noticed something. "You haven't talked to your mom lately, have you?" she asked over coffee one afternoon. I shrugged. "We're just not in sync these days. She worries about you, Clara." "I know, that's the problem," I said, trying to smile. "She worries too much." But deep down, something twisted inside me every time I silenced her calls. I could still hear her voice in my head, gentle but firm, always ending with, "I love you, honey. Don't forget to eat." I didn't realize how much I missed hearing it until it was gone. One Friday evening, I came home late from work, drained and irritable. The city lights outside my window blinked like 1,000 unspoken words. My phone lit up again. Mom. I stared at it, fingers hovering over the screen, but didn't answer. "Not now," I whispered, my voice trembling slightly. When the call ended, a strange silence filled the room. The kind that doesn't belong to the night. It belonged to guilt. The next morning, I woke up late, sunlight spilling across the bed. I stretched, grabbed my phone, and noticed something unusual. No messages, no calls. I frowned. She usually calls by now. Hours passed. Still nothing. I convinced myself she must have been busy. Maybe she was finally giving me space. Maybe this was what I wanted. That evening, as I was cooking pasta, the phone rang. But this time, it wasn't her name. It was Aunt Lisa. "Hey, Aunt Lisa," I said, stirring the pot. There was a pause, a long, heavy pause. "Clara?" Her voice broke slightly. "Sweetheart, your mom, she's in the hospital." The spoon slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor. "What? What happened?" "She had a heart attack early this morning. They tried everything. But she's gone, honey." The world froze. My heart stopped, then started racing so fast I couldn't breathe. "No," I whispered. No, that can't be true. I just saw her name last night. She called me." Tears blurred my vision. I fell to the floor, clutching the phone. "I didn't answer," I sobbed. "I didn't pick up." Aunt Lisa was crying too. "She left you a voicemail, Clara. She said she just wanted to hear your voice." I couldn't listen anymore. I threw the phone aside and buried my face in my hands. Every heartbeat felt like punishment. All those missed calls, all those declined rings. They came crashing down on me at once, like the sound of time breaking apart. Hours later, I found myself sitting in the dark, my phone in my trembling hands. I opened the voicemail app, and there it was, her last message. I didn't have the courage to press play. I kept staring at the tiny triangle on the screen, as if waiting for it to disappear, to erase what I had done. But it didn't. Finally, with tears streaming down my face, I pressed play. Her voice filled the room, soft, fragile, filled with love I didn't deserve. "Hi, sweetheart. I just wanted to hear your voice. I know you're busy, and maybe you're mad at me. That's okay. I just wanted to say I love you. Don't forget to eat, okay? You sound tired lately. Call me when you can. I'll be waiting. Then silence. The kind of silence that changes everything. I sat there, clutching the phone, listening again and again until the message blurred with my sobs. That night, I realized some calls are not meant to be answered later. The drive to my hometown was a blur of tears, headlights, and memories. Every mile felt heavier than the last, as if the road itself wanted me to feel the weight of what I had ignored. I hadn't been home in months. I had told myself I was too busy, that my city life was too demanding, that my mother would understand. But sitting behind the wheel now, I realized those were all excuses, the kind people make when they're afraid of guilt. When I reached the hospital, visiting hours were long over. Aunt Lisa met me outside the corridor, her eyes red and tired. She didn't need to say anything. I already knew. The quiet air said it all. The smell of disinfectant, the flickering lights, the way the nurses avoided eye contact. It all screamed of endings. I walked into the small private room where she lay. My mother. The woman whose voice had filled every corner of my childhood, now surrounded by stillness. Her hands folded gently on her chest, looked smaller than I remembered. I fell to my knees beside the bed. Mom? It's me, I whispered, my voice trembling. I'm here, but she couldn't hear me. Tears streamed down my face as I reached for her hand, still warm but lifeless. I wanted to shake her, to scream, to beg for one more chance. Please, please wake up, I said softly, my voice breaking apart. I should have picked up, I should have called back, I should have said I love you. The room stayed silent. A nurse entered quietly, placing a small brown envelope on the side table. She asked me to give this to you, the nurse said gently. I stared at it for a long time before touching it. My name was written on the front in her familiar handwriting, shaky but beautiful. I couldn't open it yet. Not here, not while I was drowning in guilt. After the funeral, I stayed in her house. For a few days, the same old home I had once been desperate to leave. Every wall seemed to echo her voice. Her laughter still lived in the corners, her perfume lingered on the sofa, and her photographs smiled from every frame. I sat at the kitchen table one night, the brown envelope in front of me. The lamp cast a soft glow, and outside, rain whispered against the windows, like the world itself was mourning with me. With trembling hands, I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter, folded neatly, along with a small photo of us at the beach when I was little. I unfolded the letter slowly, and her handwriting greeted me, uneven, faded in some places, but unmistakably hers. My dear Clara, if you're reading this, it means life had other plans. I know you're angry at yourself right now. Please don't be. You've always been my light, even when you tried to hide it behind your walls. I called you not to ask for anything, not to scold you, but to hear your voice one last time. Every mother knows when time is running short, even if she doesn't say it. I wanted to tell you I'm proud of you, not for your success or your job, but for the woman you've become. Strong, kind, and brave, even when you doubt yourself. Don't carry guilt, sweetheart. Guilt is heavy, and it steals the days you still have left. Live, laugh, love someone with the same depth I loved you. That's how you'll keep me alive. Love always, Mom. The letter trembled in my hands as I read it over and over. Her words felt like forgiveness written in ink, but I couldn't forgive myself. I pressed the photo to my chest and sobbed. The picture showed me as a child, clinging to her legs, smiling at the camera. I had forgotten that version of myself, the one who thought her mother was her whole world. Later that night, I played her last voicemail again. The sound of her voice was all I had left. Each time I pressed play, I noticed something new. The way she paused before saying, "I love you," the soft sigh in her tone, the faint echo of hope. I recorded it on my computer, terrified of losing it. I labeled the file "Mom's Last Call" and saved it in 3 different folders. Days passed, but I couldn't shake the guilt. I avoided everyone, friends, coworkers, even Aunt Lisa. Every time someone said, "I'm sorry for your loss," it felt like a knife turning in my chest. One evening, I went through her old belongings. There were albums, letters, and a box labeled Clara. Inside were little things, my childhood, drawings, birthday cards, and the small paper crown I had made for her on Mother's Day. At the bottom of the box, I found a note in her handwriting. "My favorite sound in the world was your laughter." That broke me. I hadn't laughed in weeks. I hadn't smiled in months. I had spent years trying to escape her world, only to realize that she was my world all along. That night, I sat by the window looking out at the city lights. Somewhere in the distance, a phone rang in another apartment. Faint, distant, haunting. I whispered, "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." The wind outside carried the faintest sound. Maybe it was just my imagination, but it felt like her voice saying, "I know, sweetheart." I closed my eyes, clutching the letter against my heart. For the first time in years, I let myself cry like a child, without pride, without restraint, just pure pain and love woven together. The rain kept falling, and I kept whispering her name, hoping somehow, somewhere, she could still hear me, hear. It's strange how silence can feel louder than words. Ever since my mother's funeral, I hadn't turned on the television, hadn't played music, hadn't even answered a single message. The apartment had become a quiet museum of my guilt. Every sound, the creak of the floor, the hum of the refrigerator, even my own breathing, reminded me of her absence. I had her photo placed on the table beside the letter. Sometimes I'd find myself staring at it for hours. Her smile in that picture was calm, full of a peace I had never truly appreciated when she was alive. I used to think she worried too much, that she was trying to control my life. But now I understood she wasn't controlling, she was caring. She was just trying to hold on to the only thing she had left of her happiness, me. Days blurred together. Mornings came and went, but I barely noticed. My coworkers sent messages, "Take your time, Clara," or "We're here for you." But how could I explain to them that my world had stopped moving? One night, I opened her old phone. Aunt Lisa had given it to me when we were cleaning the house. She said, "Maybe you'll want to keep some of her photos." But I hadn't looked at it until now. The battery was low, so I plugged it in and sat there, waiting for the screen to light up. When it finally did, I was greeted by her wallpaper, a photo of us from years ago at the kitchen table, laughing over pancakes. My heart twisted. I opened her message inbox. The first thread was with me. I scrolled through our texts, cheerful ones from the past, full of emojis and hearts, then slowly turning into shorter, colder replies from my side. Her last message read, "Call me when you're free, honey. I made your favorite pie. I'll keep a slice for you." I never replied. Tears fell onto the screen, blurring the words. I whispered, "I'm sorry," over and over, but the phone stayed silent. Then almost by instinct, I opened her voicemail folder. There were dozens of saved messages, from friends, family, and some from me. But one stood out. It was labeled Clara, 2016. I pressed play. My own voice, younger, happier, echoed from the speaker. "Hi, Mom. Just wanted to tell you I got the job. You were right. The interview went great. Thank you for believing in me. I love you." I froze. I didn't even remember leaving that message. I sounded so full of hope, so connected to her. For a moment, I smiled. Then it hit me how far I had drifted since then. After that, I spent the entire night listening to every single voicemail she had saved, some from me, some from others, but mostly hers to herself. Small reminders, notes of love, words she probably recorded just to keep her heart from feeling lonely. In one, she said softly, "Clara's busy these days, but I'm happy for her. She's growing up." In another, "I saw her picture on social media today. She looks so beautiful. I hope she's eating properly." It was like she had been talking to me all this time, even when I wasn't listening. By dawn, I sat surrounded by memories, photos, letters, recordings. For the first time, I realized my mother hadn't just been a parent. She had been a friend, a protector, a constant presence I had taken for granted. That morning, I decided to do something I had avoided for years, visit her favorite park. It was a quiet place by the river, where we used to go when I was little. She would sit on the bench with her thermos of tea, and I would feed the ducks. The moment I arrived, everything came rushing back. The sound of the water, the smell of wet grass, the way sunlight filtered through the trees. I sat on that same bench and pulled out my phone. I played her last voicemail again, this time out loud. Her voice floated into the air, soft and tender. "Hi, sweetheart. I just wanted to hear your voice." An elderly woman sitting nearby turned toward me. She smiled kindly. "That's a beautiful voice, dear. Your mother?" I nodded, tears forming. "Yes, my mom. She passed away recently." The woman sighed gently. "You know, my daughter doesn't call much either," she said. "Life gets busy, but when we're gone, the silence becomes very loud." Her words hit deep. For a moment, it felt like the universe itself was speaking through her. When she left, she touched my shoulder and said, "Keep talking to her. They hear more than we think." I sat there until sunset, whispering things I never said before. Apologies, thank yous, the small details I thought didn't matter. "I'm sorry for being stubborn. I'm sorry for making you worry. I'm sorry for not picking up that last call. But thank you, Mom. Thank you for loving me anyway." The wind blew gently, rustling the trees, as if carrying my words somewhere higher. When I finally stood to leave, I noticed something glinting under the bench, a tiny locket. I picked it up. Inside was a small inscription, "Forever loved, never gone." Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe it was something more. But I smiled for the first time in weeks. That night back home, I placed the locket beside her picture. I felt a strange warmth in the room, not the absence of her, but her presence in a different way. For the first time since her passing, I slept peacefully. It's been a month since I found that locket, a small, forgotten piece of metal. Yet somehow it had changed everything. I wore it every day, close to my heart, like a promise that I would never let her memory fade again. My mornings had become quieter, but not empty. I had started keeping her habits alive, making tea the way she liked, playing her favorite old songs while cooking, even humming to the plants on the balcony the way she used to. For the first time, I wasn't running away from my grief. I was living with it, learning from it, but healing isn't a straight line. Some days, it still hurt so much that I couldn't breathe. One Sunday afternoon, while I was cleaning the house, I found her old notebook, a worn-out journal wrapped in a blue silk ribbon. The cover was cracked and soft, the pages yellowing with time. I hesitated before opening it, afraid of what I might find. But curiosity, and maybe love, pushed me forward. The first page had her handwriting, neat and slightly tilted, "For my Clara. In case I can't tell you everything, maybe you'll find it here." My hands trembled. I took a deep breath and began to read. The entries were small, some just a few lines, others whole pages filled with her thoughts. She got her first job interview today. I pretended not to be nervous, but I prayed all morning. She called me stubborn again. Maybe I am. But I just want her to eat healthy. She doesn't realize how much I love her. Sometimes I wish she'd just sit with me and tell me about her day. Not because I want to control her, because I miss being her best friend. I couldn't read further. My eyes blurred with tears. How many times had she tried to reach me and I kept pushing her away? How many small moments of love had I ignored because I was too busy chasing something else? Independence, success, or maybe just pride. Halfway through the journal, I found something that froze me completely. If someday I'm gone and she finds this, I want her to know that I forgive her. Always. I never needed her to be perfect. I just wanted her to be happy. My chest tightened. I ran my fingers over the ink, as if I could touch the love in those words. That night, I couldn't sleep. Her sentences kept replaying in my mind like echoes. I lay in bed, clutching the journal to my chest, whispering into the darkness, "You did make me happy. Mom, I just never told you." In the middle of the night, my phone buzzed, a notification from a social media app I hadn't opened in months. It said, "Memories with Mom, 5 years ago today." I clicked it and a video started playing. A shaky clip of her in the kitchen, wearing her apron, laughing as she tried to bake something new. "Clara, stop filming and help me," she said, giggling. "You'll thank me when you learn how to bake this." And then, at the end of the video, she looked at the camera and said softly, "You'll miss me when I'm gone, you know?" It wasn't a warning. It was a joke back then. But tonight it felt like she had known something I didn't. I sat there in the dark, tears streaming down my face, whispering, "I do? Mom, I miss you every second." The next morning, something inside me shifted. I opened my laptop and started writing. Not for work, but for her, a letter. "Dear Mom, you were right about everything. About the little things, the things I thought didn't matter. I finally understand now why you worried, why you called so much, why you waited up for me. It wasn't control. It was love. I wish I had listened sooner. I wish I had said thank you more often." I kept writing, line after line, until the tears stopped. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. When I finished, I printed the letter and placed it in an envelope. On the front, I wrote, "To Mom, wherever you are." Then I drove to the cemetery. It was early morning, the air crisp and quiet. Her gravestone was simple, white marble with her name and a small engraving of a dove. I knelt down and placed the letter beside a small bouquet of her favorite lilies. "Hi, Mom," I whispered. "I brought you something." The wind picked up gently, brushing my hair across my face. I closed my eyes and let the silence wrap around me. For the first time, it didn't feel like emptiness. It felt like presence. I spoke to her for a long time that day, about my regrets, my small victories, the ways I was trying to become better. I told her how I finally cooked her favorite dish last week and burnt it completely. I could almost hear her laugh. Before leaving, I touched the locket around my neck and said softly, "You're still with me, aren't you?" And for just a second, I swear I felt something warm on my shoulder, like the lightest touch. That evening when I got home, I lit a candle near her photo. I made tea for two, just like old times. And then, almost without thinking, I said aloud, "How was your day, Mom?" It felt silly at first, but then I heard it. Not a real voice, but something inside my heart. A quiet, familiar warmth that whispered, "I'm proud of you, sweetheart." Tears rolled down my cheeks again, but this time they weren't painful. They were peaceful. That night, I recorded something for the first time. Not a voicemail, but a small message like she used to. "Hi, Mom, it's me. I'm doing better now. I still miss you, but I'm learning how to live with it. I love you." I saved it under her name. When I hit save, a notification popped up. Storage almost full. Delete old messages? I smiled faintly and whispered, "No. Some voices aren't meant to be erased." I kept them all. Hers and mine. Because her voice, the one I thought I had lost forever, was still here, inside me, echoing in every quiet corner of my heart. That night, I dreamed of her. She was standing in the kitchen again, bathed in soft morning light. She smiled when she saw me. "You finally came home, Clara," she said gently. "I never left," I whispered. She hugged me, warm, familiar, safe. "Then keep living, my love." That's all I ever wanted. When I woke up, I was smiling through tears. For the first time, I didn't feel broken. I felt whole. Because she was no longer just a memory. She was a part of me. Always. The world outside was slowly moving on, but I was still learning how to live in mine. Each day felt like walking barefoot through memories, sometimes soft, sometimes sharp, but always real. A week after visiting Mom's grave, I received a small brown package in the mail. There was no return address, just my name written in her handwriting. My heart stopped. For a long moment, I couldn't open it. My fingers trembled as I held it close, feeling the rough edges of the box. It smelled faintly of lavender, her favorite scent. Finally, with shaking hands, I untied the string and lifted the lid. Inside were 5 envelopes, neatly stacked, each with a small note on the front in her handwriting. "Open when you're ready. Open on a rainy day. Open when you miss me. Open when you can smile again. Open last." I stared at them, tears already clouding my eyes. I wanted to open all of them at once, but something in me said no, not yet. That night, as rain began to patter against the windows, I chose the one that said, "Open on a rainy day." I tore the envelope open carefully, revealing a folded piece of paper and a small Polaroid picture. It was a photo of the two of us. I was maybe 8, sitting on her lap, our faces smeared with flour, laughing after trying to bake cookies. Beneath the photo was her letter. "Clara, if you're reading this, it means life has gone on without me. I know that rain makes you sad. It always has. You used to say it felt like the sky was crying. But I want you to think of it differently now. When it rains, it's not the sky crying, it's me watering the world you're still in. So you can keep growing. I covered my mouth, sobbing softly. She always had a way of turning pain into beauty. Don't be afraid to love again, sweetheart. Don't close your heart. Grief will tell you it's safer to stay alone, but you were born with too much light for that. Find people who see it. Share it. You were always my sunshine, even on my darkest days. By the time I finished reading, I was crying so hard I could barely see. But I was smiling too, because in every word, she was still teaching me how to live. The next morning, the world looked brighter. I went for a walk to the park where we used to go on Sundays. Children were laughing, running through puddles, their parents calling after them. It felt strange, comforting and painful at the same time. I sat on a bench near the old oak tree and took out my phone. For a moment, I scrolled through photos of her, then stopped at one where she was holding a sparkler at New Year's. The photo was blurry, but her smile, that radiant, fearless smile, was perfect. I whispered softly, "You'd tell me to stop hiding, wouldn't you?" As if in answer, a little girl ran up to me, holding out a daisy she'd picked. "This is for you," she said shyly before running back to her father. I smiled through tears. Maybe the universe did listen sometimes. That evening, I opened another envelope, the one that said, "Open when you miss me." Inside, there was no photo this time. Just her words. "Clara, missing someone means you were lucky enough to have them in your life. It means love existed. Don't let the missing make you bitter. Let it remind you how capable you are of loving deeply. And when you miss me, don't look for me in the past. Look for me in everything good you do. I'm there, cheering for you, proud of you, always." I pressed the letter to my chest, whispering, "I hope you can see me now." Days turned into weeks. I started volunteering at a local hospice center, something I never thought I could do. I sat with people who were nearing their final days, listening to their stories, holding their hands when their families couldn't come. Sometimes, I'd tell them about my mom, how she loved jazz, how she used to dance in the kitchen, and every time I did, it felt like a small piece of her came alive again. One afternoon, an elderly woman named Eleanor looked at me with kind, fading eyes and said, "You remind me of my daughter. She stopped visiting years ago. Maybe she'll regret it one day." I squeezed her hand gently. "Maybe she already does," I said softly. She smiled faintly and whispered, "Then tell her, it's never too late to call." Her words hit me like lightning, because that's what my story had always been about, the call that came too late. That night, I went home and finally opened the envelope labeled, "Open when you can smile again." For a moment, I hesitated. Was I there yet? Was I ready to smile without guilt? I wasn't sure, but I wanted to try. Inside the envelope was a small key taped to the letter. "Clara, this is the spare key to the little house by the lake. I always dreamed you'd find it one day. It's not much, but it's filled with laughter, sunlight, and the smell of fresh paint, just like you used to love. Go there when you're ready to begin again." She'd kept it, the old lake house where we spent our summers when I was a child. I hadn't been there since I left for college. I'd almost forgotten it existed. The next morning, I packed a small bag and drove there. The drive took hours, winding through countryside roads lined with golden trees. When I finally reached the lake house, I sat in the car for a long moment staring at it. It looked almost the same. A little weathered, a little smaller, but still beautiful. I unlocked the door with trembling hands. The smell of cedar and thyme hit me instantly. Dust floated through the sunlight pouring in from the window, and there, sitting on the old wooden table, was something I didn't expect. Another letter. It was short, written in her graceful handwriting. "You made it. I knew you would. Welcome home, my brave girl." My knees gave out. I sat on the floor, crying and laughing at the same time. Every piece of the past I had been running from was here, and for the first time, it didn't hurt to remember. That evening, I sat by the lake with a cup of tea, watching the sunset melt into the water. I thought about all the things I'd learned since she left, that love doesn't disappear with death. That grief can be a kind of love too, and that forgiveness sometimes takes a lifetime. The air was quiet, except for the soft rustle of the wind and the distant sound of a loon across the water. I looked up and whispered, I'm smiling, Mom, just like you wanted. And for a moment, in the shimmer of light across the lake, I thought I saw her. Not a ghost, not a vision, but a feeling. A warmth that said, I see you too. The lake shimmered in the morning light, quiet and still, as if holding its breath. I hadn't left since the day I arrived. The lake house had become my sanctuary, a place where the world finally stopped spinning so fast. Every morning, I'd make tea, open the windows, and let the scent of pine and water drift inside. Sometimes I'd catch myself waiting for her to walk through the door with her cheerful morning sleepyhead, before remembering that she was gone. But strangely, it didn't hurt like before. She was gone. Yes, but she was also everywhere, in the wind brushing against my cheek, in the warmth of the sunlight across my hands, in every quiet corner where I once thought loneliness lived. One evening, I decided to open the final envelope, the one labeled simply, Open Last. I sat at the same old table where she once read her books, my hands trembling slightly as I lifted the flap. Inside was a short letter and a small voice recorder. The letter said, If you've made it this far, I know you're ready to listen. I recorded this for you years ago, back when I didn't know how to say goodbye in person. Promise me you'll listen all the way through. My breath caught. I picked up the recorder and pressed play. Her voice filled the room. Hi, sweetheart. If you're hearing this, it means I couldn't say all this to your face, and that's okay. You always hated long goodbyes. I froze, tears instantly blurring my vision. Her voice, warm, familiar, achingly alive, wrapped around me like a blanket. You were always my brave one, Clara. Even when you didn't believe it. I know life will get hard. You'll make mistakes. You'll push people away sometimes. But I hope you remember this. You never disappointed me. Not once. I covered my mouth, sobbing quietly as her voice continued. I used to worry that you'd forget me. But now I realize I don't need to be remembered. I just want you to live fully, to love wildly, to forgive easily, and to know that wherever you go, I'm right there, cheering you on. The recording clicked off for a moment. I thought it had ended. Then her voice came back, softer this time. And Clara, one day when you have children of your own, tell them about me. Not the sad parts. Tell them about the dancing in the kitchen, the late night talks, the burnt cookies. Tell them I loved you more than anything in this world. There was a pause. I could hear her take a shaky breath. This isn't goodbye, sweetheart. This is just... See you later. Then the recorder stopped. I sat there in silence, holding it to my chest. The sound of her voice still echoed through the air like a song that refused to end. That night, I couldn't sleep. I went outside and stood by the lake, the moonlight painting silver ripples across the surface. The air was cool, the world still. And then, without thinking, I started talking to her. Mom, I whispered. I listened to your message. I'm doing okay now. I promise, my voice cracked. You don't have to worry anymore. The wind picked up gently, swirling around me. Somewhere deep inside, I felt her, and not as a ghost, not as a voice, but as a warmth that settled in my chest. For the first time in years, I didn't feel alone. The next morning, I woke up early and packed a few things into my car. Before leaving the lake house, I walked one last time through every room, touching the walls, the old furniture, the chipped photo frames. In the living room, I noticed something I hadn't before, a faint mark on the wall shaped like a heart. I traced it with my fingers, smiling. Nice touch, Mom, I whispered. Before stepping outside, I left something behind, the recorder and the letters, neatly stacked on the table. Maybe one day someone else would find them and understand what love could survive. On the drive back to the city, I passed the familiar road where she once taught me how to drive. I could almost hear her voice again. Easy on the brakes, Clara. You're not stopping for a parade. I laughed out loud. For the first time, the memory didn't sting. It glowed. When I reached the city, everything felt new. The noise, the people, the life rushing by, it no longer felt heavy. It felt alive. I started volunteering more. I made new friends. I began writing, not for work, but for myself. My first story was about her, about love and loss and the phone call that changed everything. I didn't publish it for fame or money. I just wanted to keep her voice alive, and somehow it worked. People read it. They cried. They shared their own stories, stories of mothers, fathers, children, love, regret, and forgiveness. It was as if all the broken hearts of the world were quietly finding each other through her memory. Months passed. Seasons changed, and one autumn morning I found myself standing by the same lake again, the leaves turning gold and red around me. I brought flowers, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I placed them by the water and said softly, "I kept my promise, Mom. I lived." The water rippled slightly, catching the sunlight in a way that looked almost like a smile. That night, before sleeping, I played the voice message I had once recorded for her. "Hi, Mom, it's me. I'm doing better now. I still miss you, but I'm learning how to live with it. I love you." Then for the first time, I added a new line. "And I think I finally understand what you meant when you said love never dies." I hit save. As I lay there in bed, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years, not the kind that comes from forgetting, but the kind that comes from remembering with love instead of pain. Because grief doesn't end. It changes. It softens. It becomes a quiet echo, not of loss, but of love that refuses to fade. And somewhere in that stillness, in that tender space between goodbye and forever, I heard her voice again, not from a recorder, not from memory, but from my heart. "I'm proud of you, sweetheart." I smiled through my tears and whispered back, "I know, Mom, I know."